bring this meeting to order, so I want to call us to order now. This is a continuation of a hearing that we had on the 7th of November on an appeal from a cease and desist order issued by the former zoning enforcement officer. At that time, we did not close the public hearing. The public hearing is thus still open. I'd like to start by reading a few submissions that have come to the from the public, and then we'll open it for public comment. But I would like to urge people to, since we had an hour of public hearing the last time, and the board has familiarized itself, I know at least two of us have watched the tapes, and I've read as much of the transcript as I thought I needed to limit the public comment so that we can get on with other presentations which we have to attend to tonight. The first of the comments from the public are from Michael and Kathleen Gee, dated November 12th, 2013. Dear ZBA members, these are my observations from the meeting of 11/7/13. Please contrast my facts to those provided by Mr. Martin and Mr. Kolnaghi. Point. Past approvals of this facility mention the numbers of employees and clients. It does not differentiate times, dates, and portions thereof. The standard practiced by the county was the same number of people served Monday through Friday, arriving at the same time, approximately 9 a.m. and leaving at 2 p.m. Vans and loop buses came and went with little impact to the community. This has changed substantially. Second point. The change in programs provided has led to a change in the type of clients and behaviors associated with that change. The previously approved program was called Continuing Treatment Day Program, and that sign was on the building. Now the program, which is unapproved, operates under the PROS model, P-R-O-S. The definition of the CTPD, the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene, is as follows. Quote, older clients, majority female, transitioning from closed psychiatric hospitals in need of adult daycare, close quote. These clients pose no impact to the community. PROS, Personalized Recovery-Oriented Services, is defined by New York State Department of Mental Health and Occupations Incorporated as, quote, geared towards a younger majority who are male aggressive clients with severe mental disabilities combined with substance abuse, close quote. PROS is, quote, designed to prevent relapse into jails, homelessness, or psychiatric hospitals, close quote. Bob Cantalera from Lexington said, quote, this is the third point, the majority of our clients are from the courts, probation, CPS. We currently have 23, close quote. I don't know, quote, I don't know what the county did at 47 Market Street, in parentheses, previously, close quote. The next point, the numbers of employees given add up to 19 plus clerical. No numbers are given for clerical. By not providing clerical or maintenance numbers, we can assume an intensification of use. The next point. The State Office of Mental Health License for Occupations Incorporated lists a capacity of 101. That number would have been provided to the State Office of Mental Health by Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene and Occupations Incorporated. Similar numbers were given at Joel Tyner's forums on, quote, what's going on at 47 West Market Street, close quote, close quote. The next point. The State Office of Mental Health License lists Hudson Valley Mental Health as serving MICA, mentally imbalanced, chemically addicted, with no numbers. The address on the license is Suite 2, 47 West Market Street. This is an illegal subdivision of a commercial building for multiple tenants with no approvals. The next point, Barbara Schatz from HVMH, Hudson Valley Mental Health, said, we are not a day treatment program. That program was a higher level of care. The translation of this comment is that the county took care of different clients. These contract agencies have a different business model that denies responsibility for supervision and security, yet deals with, quote, severe, close quote, disabilities combined with substance abuse. Margaret Hurst from the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene was asked, did you inform the village upon changing the program? Her response, I can't answer that question. The final point, Mr. Martin has said, we can manage people. We can't manage people. We are under no obligation to supervise. This comment is in opposition to the relocations applications from the New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services. Pertinent questions of these applications forms are attached. In conclusion, I ask this board to read our zoning code because this facility is in violation of 120-1 B, H, and K. Please uphold the cease and desist order from our former CEO. Thank you. Michael and Kathleen Gee. This is the material from OASAS. Another public comment was received from Oliver Kita Chocolates at 18 West Margaret Street. Is there a substantial difference in the behavior and demeanor between those individuals who suffer from emotional illness and those who suffer from illegal drug addiction? I believe, yes, that there is a large potential for repeated circumstances of violence and petty theft crime to our unknowing Rhinebeck visitors. In passing a patient on West Market Street, do visitors, shoppers, and tourists from all around the United States and Europe want to recognize and acknowledge mental illness versus drug addiction? I think no, they do not recognize illegal drug addiction as an equivalent to mental illness and will take precautionary steps to avoid returning to Rhinebeck if made to feel uncomfortable or feel uncertain. A negative review or experience spreads quickly over the internet in reviews and blogs. The Chamber of Commerce of Rhinebeck, in conjunction with the Dutchess County Tourism Agency, have worked for decades with the Rhinebeck retail and hospitality community to create a world-renowned historic visitors experience, safe and non-threatening visitor experience. West Market Street is trying hard to expand its appeal to visitors with new cafes and shopping experiences that are exciting and inviting. I believe that it's important to have drug abuse rehabilitation services that provide secure and private support for the individual's healing, but not in a retail shopping area. It is a detriment to West Market Street businesses and the village of Rhinebeck to allow this drug rehabilitation unit to continue at this address. Oliver Kita. And then from Dorothy Donis, she doesn't give, yes, 35 Oak Street, Rhinebeck, New York. Please enforce the cease and desist order to the owner of 47 West Market Street. The businesses currently using this property are out of compliance from Rhinebeck Village zoning laws. The activity of these businesses has substantially changed the character of the village center and nearby neighborhood. These businesses will decrease property values and, most importantly, pose substantial safety risk to our citizens and visitors. Thank you for your immediate attention to this matter. And finally, Patrick and Kathleen Prosser from Anchorage, Alaska, right? Dear Rhinebeck Zoning Board members, we attended your meeting on November 7th, 2013, which focused on the August 1st, 2013 cease and desist order that was issued against the landlord who owns the property located at 47 West Market Street in Rhinebeck. Our reason for being there was twofold: to support family and community members who live and are impacted by recent changes that were perhaps illegally made by the landlord of 47 West Market Street, and maybe even more importantly to us, to see how the township deals with these matters, because we will be relocating very soon and are seriously considering Rhinebeck as a future place of residence. It was both interesting and disappointing to hear the vague explanations from various therapy representatives regarding the type of mental health clients they are servicing at 47 West Market Street. Having seen firsthand, when visiting Rhinebeck back in the mid-1980s, the mentally disabled clients, i.e. Down syndrome, dementia, low cognitive function, who receive services there are completely different than those who are treated there today. We can clearly recall a sheltered workshop approach for the clients versus the current unsupervised method in place that results in a listless, street loitering clientele, who we observed when we visited in May and most recently November of this year. We observed on most days individuals who sat on the sidewalk cursing and chain smoking along with other inappropriate behavior. We're also very interested as to why the township would allow a population that is criminally adjudicated for treatment, so as to avoid a prison sentence, that's in parentheses, and suffers from serious mental disorders to be located, parentheses, or relocated without proper due diligence, which is clearly provided for in the township's zoning ordinances, and is the reason why the cease and desist order was issued in the first place. However, a particular concern is the behavior and tactics of the attorney who is representing the landlord. In our opinion, his conduct during the meeting was reprehensible, as his goal seemed to pit the residents against those who need rehabilitation services. This clever approach was clearly designed to create an atmosphere of winners and losers, that's quotation marks, and divide the community, as opposed to applying the focus where it rightly belongs. Did the landlord of 47 West Market Street follow the rules when he changed the use of the property or not? It seems fairly straightforward and clear. He did not. We are still very seriously considering Rhinebeck as a community we'd like to join. However, this decision hinges on how this issue is resolved. Communities, residents, and businesses alike need certainty on how the rules will be applied. Those rules should apply equally to all and be rigorously enforced. Otherwise, you really don't have a community. Sincerely, Patrick and Kathleen Prosser. Now, we'll keep the public hearing open for anyone who has new information that they would like to exchange with us in a public way. Is there anyone else? Yes. Sure. I think you should use a microphone, even though we're not crowded. Hear you better.
Piper Woods. I manage Montgomery Row on 6422 and 6423 Montgomery Street. I just have I read through the myths and facts and whatnot, and, I guess this is sort of beating a dead horse kind of thing, but it seems really straightforward, just as the person who from Alaska wrote, just that it's, I don't know if, I know it's the ZEO said it was a non-conforming use. I don't know whether it falls under a service or educational use, or I don't know, or neither. But at the very least, wouldn't the three tenants have to go through some sort of, a special permit process or something, which would then, if they needed a special permit, then would require, public hearing seeker that would look at traffic and, everything else. And I'm just kind of pointing that out. And then the other question I kind of had was, he talks a lot about how, these current three tenants, did the same services as the previous, tenants did. But at the end of the day, if you have a restaurant, come in into a restaurant space, they're, 99% of the time required to go through some sort of site plan approval process, even though, sure enough, they're still, providing lunch and dinner. And then the only other question I had was, I've sort of found it a little confusing, just as a, listening, when talked about like the three different tenants. Why aren't the three different tenants seen as almost three separate, applicants or something like that, compared to it? I guess it's against the landlord because they're the, building owner, and that's kind of how it works. But if someone were actually to, become an applicant to, get a special permit or anything like that, I guess on the application process, it has they need permission from the landlord, but it's typically, the tenant, and I don't understand why you're not looking at each of the three tenants separately. That's really it.
Thank you, Piper. If there are no other members of the public, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, you want to get on the record your issues with, you had requested they bring a witness back.
Yeah,
It's all got to stay on the record.
Do you want to say it in the public record?
And John is here certainly to speak.
Yeah, you told me you wanted to go after the.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
think you.
All right. We've asked, yes, Michael?
A letter from somebody else that asked me to read it.
Okay.
From Vicky Hack, 30 East Market Street. Dear members of the board, this was supposed to be read at the last meeting, but she couldn't be there. I asked that my comments be read into the minutes. As both a homeowner and business owner in the village of Rhinebeck, I would like to express my support for the strict enforcement of the cease and desist order that has been placed on a privatized mental health facility located.
I'm sorry, sir, can you just slow down a little bit? Cease and desist order? I'm not hearing you. Cease and desist order?
I'll start over.
No, you don't have to.
You're outpacing the stenographer, Michael.
Okay, sorry. Okay, this is from Vicky Hack, 30 East Market Street, Rhinebeck, New York. Dear members of the board, as I am unable to attend the November 7th, 2013 meeting, I ask that my comments be read into the minutes. As both a homeowner and business owner in the village of Rhinebeck, I would like to express my support for the strict enforcement of the cease and desist order that has been placed on the privatized mental health facility located at 47 West Market Street. At an earlier board meeting, I spoke with regard to an incident that occurred in the village of Rhinebeck between a young mother and a male patient of the facility. The patient was insisting that the mother, who had a toddler and an infant in tow, give him money. She was frantically looking through her purse and apologizing that she didn't have any. I stepped in and encouraged the individual to leave the woman alone, giving her an opportunity to gather her two young daughters and walk away. It was a very unfortunate situation. No one should ever be confronted like this and feel compromised or threatened in our or any community. It is common knowledge that when school is let out early, the village becomes a safe haven for children. These students and their parents depend upon our community to provide an environment that does not put children in harm's way. Whether it's during the school year or summer vacation, children in the village must not be exposed to situations where their well-being is compromised. If addicts and individuals with serious mental illnesses are free to roam unsupervised in the village, then we have failed our children. And without proper supervision and guidance, the patients from this facility are not being provided with the structure that they need, and these private facilities have failed the patients that they allegedly serve. We cannot have a wait-and-see attitude toward the safety of our community. By enforcing the cease and desist order, our village has a collective voice in saying that we are not going to roll over to outside influences at the expense of our children, the elderly, and all others that call Rhinebeck their home. Respectfully submitted, Vicky Hack.
Thank you, Michael. The board, at its last hearing on this subject, asked that Margaret Hurst from the Dutchess County Mental Hygiene Department rejoin us, and she's kindly agreed to. I don't know that you need to stand at a microphone. Would you like to sit?
May I? I actually have another person before Margaret, and I'd like to have her talk.
Is there a reason why that would be appropriate?
Yes.
And it is?
She has a lot more relevant information. She works at the facility. She's been working at the facility for about 10 years, and she can talk directly as the supervising manager as to what the treatment was at that facility at the time of the county, and also at the time she works for occupations. So she's a perfect person to ask and answer some of the questions that were raised last time.
You agree to that change in their order?
I'm sorry, I missed the last public hearing. I don't know the gentleman at the end of the table?
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
Jeff
Jeffrey
Martin. I represent the landlord.
Oh, all right. I know the name.
Do we know all the witnesses that are being called tonight? Are we aware of all of them? Is that what you're...
I think there are other people who make presentations. The only witnesses we asked to come was Ms. Hurst.
Public hearing is still open though, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just was wondering who else was coming.
But that's it. We have two. Any objection to that?
Not yet.
All right, call your witness.
Okay. Amy, I'm going to have you step right up to the microphone, please.
Okay.
You comfortable?
Yes.
All right. Okay, could you please just state your name for the record, please?
Sure. Amy D'Antonio.
All right, and you currently reside where?
I reside in Ulster County.
All right. You are employed at the present time?
Yes, I am.
Where are you employed?
For occupations at 47 West Market.
All right, and just for the record, Occupations occupies a portion of the building at 47 West Market Street, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any certifications, any degrees?
I have a bachelor's degree in speech and hearing pathology, and I have a national certification as a certified rehabilitation counselor.
All right. Could you outline your employment history, please?
Sure. I started working in Dutchess County ARC several years ago. Worked there for a while, then worked for Abilities First. At the time, they were called Rehab Programs, Inc. After working there, I moved to North Carolina No, I'm sorry. I went to private rehab from there and worked for people who are hurt in car accidents or on the job and helped them attain medical stability and then help them return to work. After that, I moved to North Carolina for 3 years, then in a similar kind of capacity, then moved back to this area and worked for Gateway Community Industries in Poughkeepsie for 4 years, and then I was hired by the county in 2004 and came here to 47 West Market.
All right, so is it accurate and fair that since 2004, you were working at and have been and continue to work at the building at 47 West Market Street?
Yes, that's right.
And in 2004, you employed as a county employee, is that correct?
Yes,
And you worked for the county under their rules and regulations and procedures, is that right?
correct.
All right. And when you worked at the facility beginning in 2004 for the county, what was the nature of your employment?
My title was recreation therapist. It didn't quite match what my duties were. There were more program management was my responsibilities, such as developing our program, our group schedule, making sure our groups were covered with staff. Transportation was under my purview.
All right.
Basically.
Are you familiar with the programs that were offered by the county at the facility at 47 West Market Street?
Yes, and again, I was the one that developed those programs, put them into place, and made sure they ran smoothly.
Did those programs have a name?
Yes.
And what was the name?
The name of the entire program, Rhinebeck Continuing Treatment Center,
And this acronym RTCT?
RCTC. Yes.
Could you repeat the name of the program?
Sure, it was Dutchess County Rhinebeck Continuing Treatment Center.
Continuing Treatment Center, thank you.
All right. And generally speaking, did you have, or did you create a synopsis of those programs which were offered by the county on a yearly basis?
Yes.
All right. And I would just draw to the attention of the board that we had submitted a supplemental exhibit list. The supplemental exhibit list does include items number 14. The last exhibit list ended at 13, so the supplemental exhibit list begins at 14, 15, 16, all the way through 22, which identifies, beginning in the year 2001, what Ms. D'Antonio addressed as the RCTC, which is a Rhinebeck Continuing Treatment Center. And attached to the exhibit list, you'll see each year a synopsis of the programs which are offered by the county at this facility. And having said that, Ms. D'Antonio, I'm going to address your attention, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to address your attention to exhibit number 14, which identifies the 2001 synopsis of the programs offered at the facility.
Yes.
I'm going to ask, I'm giving you a copy
Okay.
of the supplemental exhibit list, the same thing that the board has. We have additional copies, just in case anybody wants to take these home with you. And I note for the year 2001, I'm going to ask you to look at what's identified on the first page in the third paragraph. What is that? Primary purpose, MICA. What is MICA?
Okay, MICA stands for mentally ill, chemically addicted.
Now, chemically addicted, substance abuse,
Can be, yes.
and what else?
Can be alcohol.
Okay. And could you just read what that paragraph says?
Sure. This group follows the 12-step program. Will address ACOA, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics issues, NA, Narcotics Anonymous issues, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous issues,
All right.
etc.
Now, what you're identifying, is that a group program?
Yes,
And in 2001, you weren't working there, but you have
Correct.
these notes.
yes.
Who are the type of people that are going to attend that group program? People with alcohol
Yes.
addiction and people with substance abuse addiction, is that correct?
Correct.
And was that the only program that the county offered at that facility in the year 2001?
No, we had another one, I believe.
All right, let's go to the second page.
Okay.
And there is a paragraph entitled, Helping Yourself, a 12-Step Program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you just read that?
Sure. A 12-step-based educational group on addiction, which includes films and written oral exercises, especially for the MICA, MICA patient. The group will focus on support and information for those starting the struggle towards sobriety, as well as those who are in longer-term recovery.
Now,
Terminate this.
Is it your understanding that the programs offered by the county in 2001
Okay.
were the same programs that were offered in prior years?
Yes, it is, my
All right.
understanding.
And so this program, these programs, which have been established in this synopsis for the year 2001, doing the math, is 12 years ago. And there were programs similar to this way before that time, isn't that correct?
Correct.
All right. So for the year 2001, we've identified that. Exhibit number 15 identifies the RCTC, Rhinebeck Continuing Treatment Center, group analysis or synopsis of the programs offered by the county
Yes.
in this facility, at this same building, isn't that correct?
Correct.
And if you could, I just thumb through that, and I've highlighted the last paragraph on what is identified as page 3. The zoning board can follow through with me. I've highlighted your copies as well.
I read that.
What is the last entry, that paragraph? What is that?
Al-Anon, the Strength and Hope Group. This group, which is based on 12-step Al-Anon principles, is open to anyone who has lived with, loved, or had a close relationship with an alcoholic or drug addict. It is also open to those who have emotionally and physically been abused. The message is, you didn't cause the addiction or violence, you can't cure it or control it, but you can recover.
All right. And there's another entry on the next page, which is identified as page 5.
Yes, there is.
And that group session run by the county at this facility in 2002 identifies what?
Primary purpose. This group follows the 12-step program, will address NA, Narcotics Anonymous issues, and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous issues. If you have a drinking and/or drug problem in your past, discuss this with your advocate. You will be referred to this group.
All right. So as a synopsis, this group identifies people with alcohol issues and people with substance abuse issues. Is that correct?
Correct.
The next page, on page 9, on the very bottom, there's another group, the third group for the year 2002. What does that address?
Helping Yourself, a 12-step based educational group on addiction, which includes films and written oral exercises, especially for the MICA patient. The group will focus on support and information for those starting the struggle towards sobriety, as well as those who are in longer-term recovery.
All right, and once again, just to confirm, MICA, mentally ill, chemically addictive substance abuse as well, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So the next year is the year 2004, and I would ask you, and noted as exhibit number 16 on the information provided to the zoning board, I would ask you to identify, which has been highlighted.
Mr. Martin, we are careful readers of the material that you submit, and I think you can trust us to include all of your supplemental exhibits with a record of our hearing. We probably would rather use our time asking a few questions.
Wonderful.
If that's all right, because do trust us. I've already read the material just sitting here, so we're okay on that.
And I thank you.
We're good at that.
I thank you for allowing me not to go through year by year. I was hoping someone would eventually tell me, I get it. Thank you very much.
You needed only to give me a signal.
Thank you so much. All right, so to wrap that up, Miss, you have records for the year 2001 up to the year 2011 or 12, I believe, but you did present me with 2012 tonight?
11.
2011. That's a new information which has not been provided to me except for tonight. I would be happy to submit that as a supplemental exhibit number 24, and we'll make copies of that. But the general idea, ma'am, is that during the time when the county was directly involved in the administration of mental health and substance abuse at this facility, it's true, is it not, that the county ran programs for alcohol abuse?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And it ran programs as identified succinctly on this information for people suffering from substance abuse.
Yes.
Now, and that's the time when the county was organized or involved in this facility, is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, the year 2012, as you know, and as we previously presented to the board, the county divested itself of direct management and control of running the facility and providing programs for people with alcohol addiction and substance abuse. You understand that?
Yes.
And since that time, you've been employed by occupations, you said, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And prior to today, without presenting additional duplicative information, we've had witnesses from occupation who I've identified what occupations is all about, and we've had the supervisor from occupations talk about her role. And is she your supervisor?
Yes,
She's here tonight?
Yes, she
And
is.
what's her name again?
Noni Kelly Jacob.
All right. And you then, since 2012, had a new employer, is that right?
Correct.
All right. So since 2012, is it an accurate statement that you have worked at the same building, 47 West Market Street?
Yes,
You've occupied the same area of offices, is that correct?
yes,
Is it also true that occupations is now providing the same treatment that the county provided to the patients and clients who need those services at 47 West Market?
yes,
And is it also true that occupations provide treatment for alcohol addiction, is that correct?
yes,
And is it also true that occupations has continued the county's treatment of people with substance abuse?
yes,
And you are employed to do that, is that not true?
correct.
And what you have in front of you, all the exhibits 14 through 22, and now we'll add another one, 24, identify the county's direct involvement in treating people with substance abuse, is that right?
Yes,
And you also are testifying here as an employee of occupations that occupations now provides treatment for people with substance abuse.
Yes.
Is that correct?
yes, that is.
And is it a fair statement that whatever the county did as far as treating people for substance abuse has now continued with occupations, and they're providing the same treatment, is that correct?
Correct.
And they're providing the same programs, is that correct?
Yes.
And they're seeing the same clientele, is that correct?
Correct.
And many of the employees employed by the county are now employed by either occupations, Hudson Valley Mental Health, or Lexington, and they provide the same treatment and the same programs, and they continue the same protocols that the county did when the county ran it, is that correct?
Yes,
Now, very briefly, the county oversees what it is that occupations does, is that correct?
Yes.
And the county, what I mean by that is that you have and participate in at least monthly meetings with a representative from the county, is that correct?
correct.
And you also participate in quarterly meetings with someone from the county, is that correct?
Yes.
And you also give county representatives and county officials a synopsis of all the programs which you provide for the clients and patients at 47 West Market, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And based upon the information you give to the county, you hope that the county renews your contract on a yearly basis, isn't that correct?
Correct.
But they don't have to do that, do they?
No, they don't.
And there's a hope that every year you're going to sign another contract with the county, is that correct?
Yes,
And the hope is because you're providing exemplary services for the people that need treatment, is that correct?
yes,
And the state also provides a certification
Yes.
for your company, is that correct?
yes, correct.
And that is, for lack of a better word, a very big deal, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And you participate in all the reviews provided by state officials, is that correct?
Yes,
And in so participating, you provide that for them with any information they want, you give them all of your books, and they see all of the programs that you're providing for the patients and clients, is that right?
correct.
And after that review, the state will certify you, you hope, for an extension of your certification, is that correct?
Yes,
And you could be extended for 1 year, 2 years, or the maximum 3 years, isn't that right?
yes,
And if you do receive a 3-year certification from the state, what the state is saying is that you are providing exemplary, superior, exceptional services for the clients and patients whom you treat in that facility.
correct.
And you did, in fact, receive a 3-year certification, did you not?
When we were the county, yes,
Okay. Now, at the present time, however, because occupations is a new, you've occupied and taken over the county services, you are now being reviewed by the state, and you have received the most that the state could give you, which is a 1-year certification, isn't that right?
correct.
All right. And finally, just to confirm and clarify, there's nothing that occupation does that increases the treatment that was provided by the county, isn't that correct?
That's right.
There's no additional programs, there's no additional space, there's no additional clientele, there's no additional anything, any increase in anything that you're doing over and above that which the county performed when they were involved directly since up to 2002, is 12, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Any questions?
Questions? Ward?
I don't know if either of you can answer it or somebody from the county. Am I to assume that the drug treatment center at Northern Dutchess Hospital treated the same as you were treating at 46 West? And why were there two drug treatment centers simultaneously?
I'm not sure, I mean, in all due respect, why does that matter? Why
I
does
think,
that matter?
I'm
I
just
think it matters
curious.
because a member of the board has asked a question.
That's a question
If she can answer that question, but I'm not sure you can.
I don't have the reason why, but that is the
case.
case. That is true.
Yes. I'm
I
just
don't know the
curious why
reason.
there were two run by the county seemingly identical.
Well, I think the issue is really that we provided the MICA mostly, for the MICA people, the people who have mental illness and chemical addiction, whereas the particular,
Northern Dutchess Hospital just did addiction, period.
right.
That's a subtle distinction.
Well, not if you're a person who have a
Somebody
MICA issue.
Some people consider addiction a mental illness, but that's all right. Okay.
Very different.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone?
I had a question on the allocation of time to the 12-step, the Al-Anon, the AAA program, or the AA programs. Did the county or does Occupations keep a log of the time that is allocated to these programs as a part of the entire day?
Yes.
And second question, did the county and does Occupations keep a roster of the numbers of clients that were participating in those 2 or 3 different aspects of the daily program?
Yes.
And is that log available to our board?
The one from Occupations is readily available. Our records from Dutchess County was sent back to Dutchess County. They're stored somewhere. You'd have to contact someone from the county to obtain those records.
Thank you.
But they have been maintained and sent back to the county.
I have some questions.
May I just intercede? That question was raised last hearing on November 7th, and there was an answer to the question, and the answer was, based upon a review of the logs, there are less patients and clients who utilize the services at this facility than there were at the time of the county ran it.
And who reviewed those logs? Who did the review?
I don't know exactly who prepared the information, but Ms. Hurst, who is here from the county, can answer that question when she comes back.
Well, I was also there when we were the county, and I know we had less folks that participated than we do now. I mean,
Rachel,
I
you
was
have a
there, I was in both programs.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clear on something. That you were reading from a 2001 a day in the life of a MICA patient, client, right? Were you actually overseeing or treating those patients? Or you?
Personally? Me personally? you mean?
Yes, you
No.
personally. So who was providing the treatment to those patients?
It was a county employee who had a KSAC certification.
So you're just reading them as somebody who was working there at the same time?
I coordinated, I put the program together. Okay, what you're reading, I put together, it's much more than just that. I mean, must be, 10 pages worth for each year. It was a catalog of programs that were offered to the folks. What I just copied for you was just those programs that were primarily the addiction programs.
And do you know how many, maybe you've already answered this, maybe this was in the prior hearing, but do you know how many patients utilized the MICA program then in 2000?
I did on occasion run the groups when Ann, the individual who was running those groups, was out for some reason. So I did on occasion run those groups. There was anywhere from 15 up to 15 people, maybe sometimes a little more.
And because some of what you read are not about people who themselves have narcotic issues, but about people who are related to people who
Well,
have
there's one
narcotic.
Al-Anon group.
Just
That's
one,
just
okay.
one group.
Okay, so the others were people who actually had,
Yes,
in your
correct.
knowledge, to your knowledge. But there is now another tenant at the facility that also does chemical dependency, is that correct?
Yes.
What is the name of that?
Lexington.
Lexington,
Yeah,
right,
Lexington.
thank you. So that did not exist in 2001, Lexington, as
Sure
far
they did. Oh, in 2001?
yes.
They existed as a program. I don't recall the name of the program at the time, if it was Lexington. Do you, Margaret?
In
What-
2001?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was Lexington?
Lexington existed at 47 West Market Street in
No, at the
2000?
Northern Dutchess
Right,
Hospital grounds.
But please, this is confusing enough. We're really only talking about, when I say existed.
Well, you said
we
existed,
have-
so it did
I'm sorry.
exist, yeah.
Okay, I'll be really, really clear.
Thank you.
In 2001, Lexington did not exist at 47 West Market Street.
Correct.
Okay,
And-
so,
And are you saying that the programs that Lexington does now at 47 West Market Street were those that were happening up at Northern Dutchess Hospital?
I'm assuming, I don't work for them, but I would
But
assume.
you assume that? See, what Rachel's pointing out, and what I think is important to realize, that we're only a zoning board, and we're talking about a site in the village. And what we're talking about when things exist, existence is a large word, but we were talking about what went on in 2001 and what's going on presently at that site in the village. So that's very helpful to make that distinction. Thank you.
you've talked about how you worked
Your next
with
ward.
the county, and then you worked with occupations, and to your knowledge, both of those services utilized or offered help to patients with chemical dependency problems. But what I'm trying to understand is there was another group that came in 2001, or Lexington, at one point they came in, who also offered counseling to people with drug addiction problems. Is that your understanding? Is that correct?
Yes,
So
not in
that's
2001, 2012. or
2000.
It would be 2012, 2011,
So that's an
12.
increase in the number of people with chemical dependency problems. Is that
Lord.
correct?
Overall in the building?
Yeah,
The-
at the
that-
site,
Suppose.
yeah. And is that a yes?
Let me explain. Our program is 9 to, or 8:39 to 2, okay? People come in, they leave after 2. The other programs in the building are not like that. They're not there all day. They come in, they see their doctor and they leave, or they do see their therapist and they leave. So it's different. Yes, there are people who receive this service there at Lexington, but they're not there all day, okay? They come in, they leave, they come in, they leave. Just so you're clear about that.
Ward is next.
The witness has already made the distinction that Northern Dutchess Hospital treated a different type of patient than they were treating. Both may have been drug addicted. One was mentally ill and one was not. Therefore, the two treatments, the two patient loads are different. And the therapy is different when they're not mentally ill.
Well, we also provided the service, MICA groups, okay? That's for the people who did have the mental illness, chemically addicted. We did provide groups that just for addiction.
No, but we're talking about Northern Dutchess Hospital is a different clientele than you had with Micah. You said that. You said one was mentally ill and one wasn't.
She said that she couldn't answer that question, and that's
No,
why
she
I
did
objected
answer it,
to
I'm sorry.
That's why I objected to it, because she doesn't work for Lexington, and she doesn't know what
I
they
didn't
do.
mention Lexington, I mentioned what, then she said the patients were different.
I think
of all,
the
Northern
record
Dutchess-
will show what the witness said, so let's try to move on, because we did ask Ms. Hurst to come and speak with us, and we are now well into the first hour.
If there are no more questions, I'm ready to have her come. Any further questions? Thank you very much. Ms. Hurst?
Mr. Martin, could we begin asking questions, and perhaps you could help us along with it if necessary?
I have certainly no objection to that. We're prepared for that.
Do we have some questions for Ms. Hurst? I do. Thank you for coming back. The problem that I had after I read the transcripts from the last hearing was one that seemed to be a conflict in what you had said, and I wanted to be clear about that. You said that, to the question, is it true that the services that are provided presently are the same services the County of Dutchess provided when the County of Dutchess was in there? Was a question from Mr. Martin, and you said, yes, it is. But then later on, as you were asked towards the end of your remarks, whether in fact those services were at West Market Street, which I took Mr. Martin's question to mean in there. You said, no, those are in the grounds of Northern Dutchess Hospital. Could you explain that distinction that you were making?
I think what I was thinking at the time was the distinction between the occupations and Lexington Center Clinic. Certainly, as you all know, the clinic was up at the Northern Dutchess Hospital, so I didn't want to
We've actually learned just now that what was up at Northern Dutchess Hospital had the name Lexington. That's news tonight.
But it had several other names too. So,
Okay.
But so I apologize if I was unclear about that. But the people that we serve are the same.
And the services, what distinguished the decision by the county at that time? How long was the Lexington, whatever its names might have been at one time or another, on the grounds of Northern Dutchess? Did you have any idea? You were there from the 70s on. When did it have a site there?
Since that time, since in the 70s. There's been both.
Was there a distinction? How was that decision made, that some of it would be at Northern Dutchess and others would be done?
Now, that was a little before my time, so I really don't know what the distinction was.
So that pre-existed.
So Lexington moved to 47 West Market Street in 2012. Have we established
That's
that?
right. It's in 2011-12.
And it was at the grounds of the Northern Dutchess Hospital before then?
As was Hudson Valley Mental Health Clinic, yes.
Right, so but you're no longer working at 47 West Market Street?
No, I'm not.
You left when?
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
Okay. But if Lexington came in 2012 to 47 West Market Street, and all things else being equal, like occupations seems to have serviced the same clients, then it seems just logical that they've increased the amount of patients who are being treated for chemical dependency problems. Is that not an obvious conclusion and logical conclusion to draw from what we now understand to be the case?
But you also have to remember that some of the patients that are served at Lexington also have additional mental health issues as well.
We understand that.
So that I don't know that you can distinguish this person, separate out, this problem as opposed to that problem. We have a no wrong door policy, that any person, as they walk into a program seeking services, we will treat all of the problems that they have. So if they walk into occupations and they have a mental health issue and they have a chemical dependency issue, we're going to treat both of those issues in that program. The same thing with Hudson Valley Mental Health Clinic, and the same thing with the Lexington Center. They have many people at Lexington that have serious mental health issues as well as their addiction, and they treat both.
If you don't mind, what is the predominant characteristic of the patients treated at the Lexington Center?
It's a predominantly chemical dependency program.
So they would advertise themselves to the public as servicing patients with chemical dependency, correct?
Yes.
They may also have other mental health issues, we understand that, but that's the predominant client base.
Ward, do you have a further question?
Am I to understand you that all three of the programs treat drug addiction and dependency
Yes,
as
they
well
all
as
provide
mental
that.
illness?
They all
Okay.
provide that.
I didn't have
treatment,
that
yes.
distinction.
What was the original distinction between the clients or the services, the issues addressed at the former operation at Northern Dutchess Hospital before the amalgamation of everything in 2012 down at 47 West Market Street? Were there different clientele, were there different approaches? I understand from the presentation by Ms. D'Antonio about the MICA involvement, but was there a particular distinction for the kinds of services that happened up at Northern Dutchess?
A distinction from what?
A
That what
distinction
they did there, they do here.
What they did there then, they now are doing here. Was what they did there then different from what they were doing down in, say, 2012 when Ms. D'Antonio was talking about?
No, they're
The
doing this.
clientele was the same, the processes were the same?
These are the publicly funded programs.
Well, I'm not talking about their source of funding, but their process?
Yes, it's the same process.
Since all three programs at 46 West Market treat all people, why are there three different, and what makes them different in their approach? Why?
They all have very similar approach. They all provide individual therapy. They all provide group therapies. They are treating a variety of problems that people walk in with. I think Ms. D'Antonio did allude to one distinction is the folks that come in for treatment in occupations may spend a longer portion of the day there, as opposed to in the other two programs where they're coming for an hour for their therapy sessions, whether it's individual or group, or they're coming to see their doctor. All of those services are provided in all three areas.
My question is based on the fact, why are there three distinct programs as far as management goes when they treat the patients all the same? I don't know if you can answer that from the county health point of view, but I find it very curious.
As I said, it's a different, two of the programs do more clinic types of services. You come in, you see your doctor, you see your therapist, you go home, like going to your medical doctor, your primary care physician. In the other program, they are spending a little bit more during their day to learn other skills.
Ms. Hurst, you know what, I think this is, trying to get to something. We have a lot of people in Rhinebeck, the reason this came to us, telling us that they have noticed an increase in a certain kind of behavior at this property. And it's been outlined, it's been enumerated, it's been elaborated. And then Mr. Martin keeps calling witnesses who try to tell us that absolutely nothing has changed. So clearly something has changed. And I think we're trying to get at the root of what it is that's changed. Do you think, in your opinion, that, I'm just asking, that relocating Lexington, the particular, not the approaches used, but the particular patients serviced at Lexington to this facility in the village of Rhinebeck at 47 West Market Street might account for the perception among the people, the neighbors, that there is an increase in a certain kind of behavior that's problematic, an increase in a certain kind of loitering? I mean, you're an expert, right? You're here as an expert. As an expert, do you think that relocation could account for the difference that the neighbors have seen?
Ms. Gonzalez, hold on. You're asking her to go into the mind of the neighbors.
No, I'm asking her for her expert opinion.
I appreciate that. I don't have any problem with her answering it, but I don't know how, if she has talked to these people and she can answer that question. I don't think she's clairvoyant.
You know what? I really don't think that clairvoyance is a job requirement, and I know that she's not clairvoyant, but I think what we're trying to do, it's a frustrating process from our end because we keep being told two contradictory things, and I'm just wondering whether you...
What I can tell you is that treatment works.
That's not
and
what
when
we're
people,
asking,
yes, when people come into our services, they are coming because they want to recover from either whatever their issues are, their mental health issues or their chemical dependency issues. While they're in treatment, they are working on that recovery process. They are abstinent, and they are moving towards their treatment goals. So that this usually shows a decrease in negative behaviors, an improved ability to function, and to get better.
Ms. Hurst, we are very small-minded people on this board. We're large-minded once we get off the board. But I'm still trying to reconcile, you're telling Mr. Martin when we last talked, when he asked, is it true that the services they provide are the same services the County of Dutchess provided when the County of Dutchess was in there, meaning 47 West Market? And you said, yes, it is. And then later on, when asked in 79 when you came, was the chemical dependency, substance abuse work done in the building at 47? You said not in that building, it was done in Rhinebeck. And the following question was, where is it? Where was it done? It was in the building on the grounds of Northern Dutchess Hospital.
And that's where I was unclear about the clinic program. as opposed to the continuing day treatment program. We were providing the chemical dependency treatment services, but not, the clinic was at Northern Dutchess. And I
Say
was,
that again, because I think I almost understood it.
we were providing chemical dependency treatment to the people at the Rhinebeck Continuing Treatment Center. The clinic treatment services were in Rhinebeck.
What's the difference between?
Yeah,
It was
that's
just different certifications.
certifications. I almost get, you really know what you're talking about, and I don't, I almost get to the end of the sentence, but different certifications.
One was a
The board probably
certification
understands
for
that,
the
but-
continuing treatment center, and one was a certification for the clinic.
What would be the difference in those certifications?
It's.
Are there hierarchies involved there of some sort?
Well, as Mr. Antonio said, they were in a continuing treatment center, they spend a longer portion of the day, and in the clinic, it's more like going to your primary care doctor. You go in, you see them, you get your treatment, you go home.
And that was what was done at Northern Dutchess?
Yes. That was the modality.
Yes, thank you. I understand now. Ward.
Can I repeat what I said last meeting? We're not really here to judge the clinical therapeutic aspects of your program. What we're concerned about is that the landlord of this building made, from our perspective, from everything we've been able to find, a major change without having the courtesy or the, whatever it may be, to go through the legal aspects of planning. So are you supporting him, or are you supporting the clinical? Because this is the tricky situation you put yourself into, because we're questioning him legally whether he did the right thing as far as what he put in that building.
So you're
Without
asking
going-
her to make a legal decision? And
Pressing her to
No,
answer
no.
Ward's question.
How can you
She's making,
possibly ask that question?
I didn't ask her to make a legal decision.
Well, yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I
You
said
said,
she is
well,
making
I-
one.
I'm going to ask her not to answer that because she's not an
Okay,
attorney
right,
and
right.
she doesn't represent
Right.
Mr.
Is she your
Colnaghy.
Well, I'm going to ask the board to stop arguing with the attorney. Are there other questions? Larry, do you have anything to ask?
No.
Is somebody from the public ask?
You're not exactly from the public. You're the zoning enforcement officer. You act as, I think, a device to us. You have one question to ask.
Yes, I do. Is there a difference between a consultant facility to a rehabilitation facility? Is there any difference between a consultation and rehabilitation? Is there a difference between those two words?
I'm not familiar with the consultation facility.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is, I pulled a letter from the file that was dated back in 1975 from Stanley Williams. I think he was the previous landlord or the owner of the building.
Yeah.
And he wrote a letter to the planning board chairman and basically laid out the lease for the Dutchess County Mental Health Department. And he said basically that the building is to be used as a day outpatient consultation facility. There are plans to construct several small offices and also 2 larger meeting rooms, which could be used for recreation and for small work projects for approximately 20 to 25 patients. So that letter was in the file. And then when I went to their website,
Whose website?
the Dutchess, or what are they called?
Oh,
Occupations?
no.
The website is for mental hygiene services and programs, Dutchess County website. And it lists many of services. The major services that were originally approved were adult outpatient and community inpatient treatment. What I notice now is there's detoxification services, inpatient rehabilitation, and intensive residential. So just in my opinion, it seems that
None of those services are provided at 47 West Market Street, except for adult outpatient.
adult outpatient, I must be reading this wrong, but I just have the impression that even though physically the building has not expanded, there hasn't been any more people added to the building, but your services have expanded. You offer more services, and that's...
We offer adult outpatient services.
Yes, we got your point.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Hurst, for spending time with us tonight. I believe that John Marvin has a presentation he'd like to make.
Thank you, I'll be brief.
Thank you.
That would be great.
Good evening, I'm John Marvin. I'm representing Mike and Kitty Gee and also Debbie Hazelwood, who are all Oak Street residents. And I'm also a resident of the village and have an office in the village of Rhinebeck. I did submit a written submission, so I know you can read, so I'll just be very brief and sort of highlight some of the things I think that were talked about tonight and to try to crystallize a couple of points. One of the things I don't know that anybody's really talked about yet is how this village has always looked at change of use. And our code does have a definition of change of use, and I have actually a little bit of history on that. I like to think I was the inspiration for it because just before that 2000 code was adopted, I made some arguments on a different project about saying, well, this doesn't really constitute a change of use. Retail is retail is retail. If you're not changing the, if it doesn't really change the general nature of it, it's not a change of use, and my client shouldn't have to go through a site plan. That was my argument, and I lost.
I remember.
And in 2001, we came out with the change of use definition, which included some of my arguments saying, this is a change of use, when I said that wasn't. So anyway, but what we have is a very strict change of use definition. And the first thing you should think about is when that's applied to permitted and specially permitted uses. So for example, I wasn't here for the first one, but I saw the video of it. I thought Barbara Hartshorn made an excellent point, is that I have permitted uses and I have to go through site plan, and we do that, and we do that regularly. So even subtle changes in a change within a particular use group even, it doesn't even have to be a change from one use group to another. If you're within a use group and there's a change, you go to site plan, okay? You go through the planning and zoning process. Now we're talking about a non-conforming use, okay? And in non-conforming use, you really have a heightened scrutiny for change, if you ask me, because it's settled law that why you have non-conforming use provisions is because, well, you can't just pull the rug out from somebody, but what you want to do is you want to bring those locations that are non-conforming uses into compliance. The goal is to phase them out. And that's why you have provisions like intensification. That's why you have provisions like expansion. You can't do it. And, they give you some breaks. And even if you change, you can't change from one non-conforming use to another. So what you have here is, and I kind of understand the situation that the owner's in, is they want to put a label on the use and have it as broad as they can possibly make it. And they want to say, well, if it's mental health services, then, it comes under, it's not a change. Well, it is a change. Everything's changed. The model changed. The nature of the service has changed. And it brings up just another point, and that is there's a lot of properties that have more than one use. And what you usually look at in a zoning point is you have a primary use and maybe some ancillary uses. And even if you look at what was submitted today as additional exhibits, the type of service that they're providing now was at best, at most, an ancillary use at this location. Okay, so I think in my thing I cited a case, there was a case in White Plains or something where you had a non-conforming automobile repair shop. Well, the automobile repair shop sold some used cars. They fix up a car, a guy doesn't want it, they put it out, used car for sale, and they were selling cars. Well, it kind of swapped over from an auto repair shop as the repair being the ancillary use and the used car sales the primary use, and they said no. That's a change of use. I don't think we really have something, we're going into healthcare, but it's a different, we have the same thing here. You have what was an adult daycare center for severely mentally retarded people. That was the continuing day treatment program. And that's in some submissions I had. That was the primary use here. And was there certainly, some addiction and recovery or rehab services? I don't doubt that there were, but it wasn't the primary use. It was probably an ancillary use at best. And if you look at what you have now, for example, you have this PROS model. That's an intensive rehabilitation recovery program. It's not the same thing, I think, as going to a 12-step program, which is, I think, a little bit more low-key. This is a designated intensive recovery program, And while I hope that all these people are going to these programs because they want to, I think some of them are probably going because they've come from the criminal justice system and they've learned it, and it's a different model. And the last thing I think is there's nothing about this board, and I think this is pretty clear, this isn't a referendum on whether we're for or against recovery. I don't think anybody's against it. It's just whether you should be subject to the planning and zoning process. It's as simple as that. And clearly, this is a change. And I also think that Rachel sort of hits the nail on the head. It's a question, maybe you can't go into the minds of the neighbors, but why in the world would the neighbors not complain about anything since 1975? Or I don't know if they ever was, but, and boom, as soon as this new model comes in, you have all of these complaints. It's because there was a change. It was a change in use. It was both an intensification and a change. So I think you have both reasons for the cease and desist to be upheld that Mr. Fennell issued, and I think it's just common sense. So,
Can I just say whether you use a change of use, but also change of clientele, which is in a sense an indirect change of use?
that's the change of use. Yeah, it's primarily a different program that's going on there than what was before. The primary use of that is different.
Yeah, Bob Fennell, in his concluding remarks the last time we met, read from the Pace Law Review a apparently state-of-the-art definition of nonconforming use and its change, and it suggested quite clearly it does not allow the owner to change to a materially different use, and it goes on to define the various ways that these days the material different use for nonconforming use is defined. It fits some of the things you've been saying.
And it's what you look at. You look at, well, what happens? You know, there's, in one of the cases that I cite in my paper, if you have a generic similarity, well, we're trying to help people. That's not enough. It's really what happens with traffic, with safety, with all of the issues that zoning and planning boards are supposed to regulate. Those are the complaints. The complaints that you have to deal with all those things. And if the owner thinks that it's allowed, fine. Come in before and apply for whatever permits, whatever changes you do. And if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. But you can't just give it this big umbrella. We're treating, you know, there's mental health treatment going on here, so it's not a change of use. It just doesn't work that way. Certainly not with a non-conforming use.
Are there questions from the board?
John, I just had one question. In your opinion, do you think going from a public management of a property like 47 West Market to a privatized management and operation of the same property, does that, in your opinion, constitute a change of use?
I don't know that that constitutes change of use, but I think that you can look at that as a piece of evidence that supports a change of use. And my point is this, is they have three people, or the county changed its model. And what they did is they changed exactly what they want to do. They brought Lexington in. So for example, I think Ward hit it on the head. There was a clinical aspect that wasn't there. They brought that clinical element there. That's one change. You have three different providers of services because they all specialize in something different. You know, so I think you can look at, well, you went from one that's just kind of doing primarily an adult daycare type of thing to three that are more into intensive rehabilitation, treat all of them into the same intensive rehabilitation programs. So I think you can look at that as an element of what is part of the change of use. So, you know, you have three different entities operating in there as opposed to one. They're all in there because they probably provide a different mode and a different modality of service. I mean, they'd have to answer that question. But I think you can look at that as part of the overall picture to conclude that there was a change of use.
Yeah, Ward had asked last time about whether the county had, at any point during this transition of method and process, sought any clearance from the town, and there was no indication that that had ever been done. Although it would seem from what you're saying, there was every indication that it probably was. And I noticed in the leases that the tenants of the building now signed, these particular changes were anticipated by the landlord. And I don't see where those would have come from, the assurances that that could happen.
Well, I mean, that's really between them. I do think that one of the attachments to my papers and one of the attachments to the comments that the GE submitted has, it's just the blank application from one of the state substance abuse councils, and it has specific questions regarding the community, zoning, having a plan for getting into the community and working with the community. And I don't know how those were answered, but I think even when you look at the licensing agencies, they understand that there are zoning issues that need to be addressed when you're going to locate a facility. And that was skipped in this case.
Any other questions from anybody else? Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
I would like
Do you
to,
have to say something?
just to sum up,
Sure.
first of all, I very much appreciate the attention the Zoning Board of Appeals has given this issue. On behalf of my client, we know that this is a difficult issue. We know that this is not easy. We know that there's a lot of issues and other ancillary matters which bring us here today that have nothing to do with zoning, as Mr. Stanley pointed out last time. I would ask for an opportunity to respond to what Mr. Marvin has submitted. He has an enormous amount of documents. I have, I believe, a right to respond to that. I would ask for some time to do that. I would also note that we did have a witness from every single tenant who occupies the building, who identified the programs offered at that building. So, in all due respect to Mr. Marvin, who's a good friend of mine, I'm not sure how we can comment any more than the witnesses who provided information who are employed by their employer to provide the services. I don't think Mr. Marvin knows more than they do about the treatment that's provided at this facility. I will look at the documents. I'm not implying that he's saying that, but he's interpreting the services that are provided by the tenants in a way that's different than their own testimony. And I would just bring that to your attention. I would also highlight something that is crucial, I believe, to the zoning rules and regulations. We've all identified Section 12052B. I've read that in for the record. I would like to highlight that again. Non-conforming uses, which is what this is, may not increase their intensity by increasing the number of people working at a non-conforming business. There's been no indication that the number of people has increased. The number of tenants has, absolutely, no question about that. But I suggest that that's irrelevant. It doesn't say the number of tenants. If it did, we'd have a problem. It says the number of people. And I repeat that, the number of people. And every single witness that came here on behalf of the tenants said that they have less people there than they did when the county was there.
It also says that a non-conforming use shall not be enlarged.
That's correct.
Right.
And it has not been enlarged.
Period. Well, depending on how you define enlarged. That's a pretty vague word. I mean, it's a pretty broad word.
Which is subject to interpretation. Mr. Stanley?
People includes clients and employees, and enlargement includes usage functionally, not necessarily people. It may say people, but it means change, as you just said, a change of use, so.
I see the word people. I'm just reading it verbatim from the Village of Rhinebeck zoning code. I'm not interpreting it. It says people. I don't know how it's like Bill Clinton trying to define the word is. People is people. So, in all due respect. So I think that's a very, very
All people.
huge, all people. And we are saying that if it's zoned for 70 clients and residents and patients, it's zoned for 20 employees, it's zoned for 49 parking spots. We've identified the exact amount of people that use this building. Ms. Donatofrio today, I'm screwing up, I'm sorry about that, D'Onofrio indicated that as an employee of the county, there are less people there that used it when the county was there, and she would know. She worked there since 2004. If anybody knows what's going on in that building, it's her. She was employed by the county, and she said that there's less people there than there were in the county. That's information from somebody who works in that building every day, who sees what goes on in that building every day. Those are the people you need to listen to. So that's an issue. And then finally, if I could make one more point. We have all listened very carefully to the statements that the public made. And we've listened very carefully to the comments that some people made that had nothing to do with zoning, as Mr. Stanley very correctly pointed out. We've also read the flyers that people have distributed in the town of Rhinebeck. And we've read what's posted on the Rhinebeck Forum for 2,000 people to read. And I'll have to tell you, I have a very growing concern that despite the fact that I think reasonable and rational people, if we hadn't served this cease and desist order, which Mr. Fennell thought, quote unquote, was based upon the fact there was no substance abuse treatment in the facility, and has since learned that there is, and he thought that from a neighbor, someone that shares the office with him in the village of Rhinebeck, and maybe a few other people, he issued that cease and desist. But I think that reasonable minds can prevail, and we can resolve this issue in 5 minutes with your very capable village attorney. But instead, here we are. And I think there's a reason for that, and I have a very growing concern, and I have to say this, that there's something more than zoning at foot. And when people spread erroneous, completely dysfunctional lies about the people that use this facility, that bothers me. And when I hear that there's people who are social workers that come and they say that they're bothered by the fact that these people wear quote unquote inappropriate clothing, and these people talk too loudly, and these people smoke, and these people look funny, and these people scare me. What does that tell me? That tells me we have a problem in the village of Rhinebeck. I think the thing that bothers me the most is that people are worried or concerned about the fact that people have taxi cabs that they need to get to this facility. And so I thought about this. If we're all in our homes, wherever we live, very comfortably, thankfully, and we have a broken leg, and we don't have a way to get to the hospital, what do? We call our friends, our relatives, our neighbors. But if we have a broken leg and we need service, how are we going to get there? We're certainly not going to walk. We're going to call a taxi cab. And so what I tell you is that the people who utilize the services at this facility, the people who suffer from mental illness and people who suffer from substance abuse need to get there. And they don't have a way to get there. They're too poor. They can't walk. Some of them do, who live locally. They need to get there. The state makes the arrangement, and the state's paid for their taxi cab. That's just the way it goes. And I am offended that people are offended by the fact that these people are too poor to be able to find another means to get there. What does that tell me? That tells me that things are changing around here. And that's, I think, the problem. Why is that going on? When people make false allegations and spread them like they're truth. That's why we're here. When people circulate things in the Rhinebeck Forum, and all due respect to you, Mr. and Mrs. Gee, the information you provided in that is not correct. And I have completed a myth versus fact statement, which I've attached to as an exhibit, and I've got copies here.
Excuse me, Mr. Martin, is that your opinion, or is that the property owner's opinion?
This is an opinion, I've included.
I believe it's your opinion.
You've also asked.
No, I haven't.
You've also asked that we not consider irrelevant information, and this is pretty irrelevant to the question of zoning.
Ms. Cavell?
I agree.
I couldn't agree with you more, but many of the people who came here.
No, Mr. Martin.
Really.
Sit down,
Really?
go sit in the audience and
We're
wrap it
tired.
up.
We don't want to hear.
It's just boring the heck out of me.
I'm so sorry. I'm doing my job. I would just ask that you do yours and listen to me, in all due respect, sir.
Listen to the facts.
All right, the facts are in this myth versus fact sheet, and the myth is there's increased criminal activity. That is not true.
Mr. Martin, we will read the myth versus fact sheet as part of what you've submitted, but I think most of us have expressed our opinion that you're not getting any further with us tonight with this particular approach that attacks members of the community.
And I appreciate that, and I respect that very much, very much.
Good.
But I need to make a
How much time
record.
do you think you will need?
Probably another minute.
No, I mean for your response.
Oh.
You began this by saying you would need some time for a response to
I'll need a response, but.
Mr. Marvin's submission.
But the gentleman asked a very good question, and he asked a question, I was cut off. The information in that myth versus fact sheet is not my opinion. It's facts from the record, from any public record. That's what's in there. I did not include my opinion in that. I ask you to read that, because I do believe that what brings us here today is a spread of false information, and that's too bad.
Are you going on the record to say there's been no increase in criminal activity? I mean, we could.
Absolutely.
We could subpoena the
Please.
criminal record.
I've already done that, and you can look at it right tonight.
Okay.
Please, let's not look at any more tonight. Why don't you tell us how long it'll take you to formally respond to what Mr. Marvin has submitted, because that's what we're here to work on.
Okay, I have not reviewed the information that Mr. Marvin has prepared. I respect his ability as an attorney. I'm sure it's very thorough. I ask for the same courtesy to respond to this. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm going to the holidays. It's December 10th. We've got Christmas and New Year's. I would ask for at least, I'd say 3 weeks a month to respond. I think it's going to take that long.
Larry?
I had noticed before, when this started to go into this division, how not germane for me a rebuttal from Mr. Martin is to deciding this issue. I mean, if you guys feel that a rebuttal is a relevant piece of information for you to make your decision, I will certainly be fine with that. But my personal comment is, I have all the information I need. I don't need to get pushed around the table anymore. And I'm ready to make a ruling on this with you guys when you were ready. I don't feel an extension for a rebuttal is even relevant to the issue anymore. The issue has been flogged and flogged. I missed the last meeting. I had the pleasure of watching it at my house for 2 hours and 38 minutes. I thank everybody who made the effort. I've been through it. I've heard the exact same things tonight. And if you guys want to subject yourself to another meeting and another rebuttal of this information, I think John's done his job.
I think
Jeff done his job.
If I could suggest.
Yes,
The
please.
board has a lot of material that it's got to review. It's got an entire transcript from the prior hearing. It's going to have a transcript from this hearing. There are some points of law that have been raised in this. Mr. Martin should at least be able to address that.
Well, I think Mr. Marvin should have the courtesy of a thorough read. We would like to put it on television so it'll be more enjoyable, but we'll probably just have to read it. And I think that would be the best thing to do. But I do think that we should all, if we're all facing the holidays, we have our stacks of papers, we should be as expeditious as possible because people are waiting for a conclusion to this. So I'm not in any position to say 2 weeks or...
I mean, when was this cease and desist order issued? In May, correct?
No, in August.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the problems began in May.
Oh, the problems
The cease and
began in
desist
May.
was August. I haven't got the date.
And it's now December, and it's still operating. I mean, I guess I'm not inclined.
Because there's a stay under the zoning code. So, I mean, it's an appeal, and it's stayed.
Right,
You
but
are
it was,
going to
but the
decide.
cease and desist order was completely ignored.
Right. You are going to
Well,
decide the issue.
the appeal,
I stated,
Stays.
I understand.
So, I mean, right now, I think that the board has got all of its information. Mr. Martin wants to respond to the legal issues raised in here, and I haven't read it.
I have a solution. And I appreciate everything that John has done today, but if he withdraws his submission, I don't need to respond to it. We're done. And Mr. Marvin presented a very, very zealous advocate for his client. I don't know if you need to read it. I don't know what it says, but if he withdraws that, then I don't need to respond to it, and we are done tonight. We would very much like that to happen, but we do, in all due respect to Mr. Olson, he's correct. I have a right to respond. That's just the way it is. You don't have to read it, but I have a right to respond.
I think it's an important brief. It's from the neighborhood, and I would personally like to read the information.
I'd leave that up to Mr. Marvin and his clients, but I think it's appropriate since we have it before us that we should pay attention to it.
It's a 7-page letter on the legal issues. So, I mean, the rest are attachments.
Let's devote ourselves to that, and Mr. Martin, when you've had a chance to review it, can you give the office your best, your shortest duration preparation, holidays included, we're all facing those, but we'd like to get this on the boards certainly by the turn of the year.
When is the next time the board meets in official capacity?
Next week.
Next week.
And the time after that?
I thought you'd ask. Probably not for a while.
January 16th.
Can we shoot for January 16th?
That's very acceptable, and I will have it prior to that time to you.
Let think that's a little long myself.
We might schedule can we get an earlier January meeting?
But does it need to be at a meeting that it's submitted? Why does it need to be at a regularly scheduled
Mr.
meeting?
Martin already suggested he needed 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, if he could say that he would respond to this,
Let's do that, and we'll schedule a meeting as early in January as
then
we
the board
can.
will have its complete record.
Right.
By then, you will have digested everything that you have, and then you can digest the response that you will receive.
Let's try to close the public meeting for now.
So move.
Second, third.
In favor? Okay. And Mr. Martin will submit his response as soon as possible. We'll study it, and we will set as early a date in January as we can
Well, as soon as possible, but no later than, you don't want to put a...
within 3 weeks.
Within 3 weeks from today?
Yep. And we will set a meeting for as early in January as we can get a hall and a quorum. Motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned?
Favor? Done. Thank you all.